done. Here we go. Okay, you're doing 3.4, the percent equation. The percent equation. Okay. Percent is a ratio of a number to 100. Basically, 100%. For example, 40% can be written as 40%. It can be written as a decimal, as 0.40. Or 40 over 100, which is reduced to 4 over 10.
That also be reduced the second time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just kind of stating what 40% would look like. Notice 4 tens place, 4 is in the tens place. Okay, let's do an example because y'all know this stuff. 82% as fraction and decimal. Okay, 82% as fraction and decimal. Okay, so first let's do fraction. You're going to write it over what?
100.
And then we simplify it to what, Taylor?
41 over 50.
Very good. So changing it to a fraction is not too bad, right? Okay, let's change it to a decimal. Since it's 82 over 100, the last digit should be in the hundreds place. Last digit should be in hundreds place. Or, if you remember the trick, When you're changing it to a decimal, how many places do you move the decimal?
2.
2 places to the
Right. Left. Right.
Left.
Oh.
to the left.
Left, right, left.
I know. That would give you 0.82. Move decimal 2 places left, because there's 2 zeros in 100. Smiley face.
Aren't that smiley face we give an F?
Okay, I'm writing that for it.
So to change any percent to a decimal, take it out of percent, you move the decimal 2 places to the left. Okay? And then that will help you actually then turn it into a fraction.
What is that little dot behind the 100?
What dot? That's a smiley face.
No, what's the left? It's a smiley face.
These are quotes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, like, it's 2 little
Yeah.
things? Oh, okay.
Now, what if I had .63%, and I want to change that to a decimal? I have kids all the time say, well, it already is a decimal. They just take away the percent sign and call it good. That's not correct. In Algebra 1, you're going to have percents that are decimals, but you still have to do something to take it out of percent. So, Aiden, what do I do to change this to a percent? Change it to a decimal out of percent.
You move it to
2 places to the left. Put in your little 0, and your answer is 0.0463.
4.63 sounds right to me.
All right. So even if you have a decimal in your percent, if it says change to a percent, that doesn't mean, oh, well, I don't have to do anything. It already is a decimal. No. You have to still move the decimal. Any questions? Does everyone have this? All right. Now we're going to change a fraction, convert a fraction to a decimal and percent. Okay, so we're going to change that to a decimal and a percent. Okay, changing it to a decimal, all you're doing is dividing the denominator into the numerator. 5 can't go into 3, so we put in a decimal and 0. 5 goes into 30 6 times. So your answer is 0.6. Now, once we have that, we can change that to a percent. Now, if it's already a decimal, how do we move, how many times do we move the decimal, Taylor?
Twice
Which direction?
to the right.
To the right. Because before, we were going from a percent to a decimal, and we went left. This time we're going from a decimal to a percent, so we move it right 2 places. So then our answer is 60%. You're going to move decimal 2 places right. Now, a little trick. Let's say let's another little trick you can do. If the denominator can go into 100 evenly, then you can quickly change this into a different fraction and then go in this direction here. For example, can 5 go into 100 evenly?
Yes.
Okay, how many times can 5 go into 100?
20.
20. So then 3 times 20 is?
60.
There's your new fraction. And we know that if it's over 100, then that becomes 60% immediately. And all you have to do is move the decimal 2 places to the left, and you get 0.6 as your decimal. So if there's 2 different ways, you're in Algebra 1, you should be able to do both. Will the denominator always go into 100 evenly?
No.
No. So you need to know how to do this. But if the denominator can go into 100 evenly, then you can easily find these 2 things in that way. See what I'm saying? So if it can go into 100 evenly, there's 2 different ways to find this information. This one will always work, whether it can go into it evenly or not. Okay. Any questions? All right, let's do another one. Let's do, this time we're going to do a decimal. Make sure your notes are nice and neat because you may forget how to do some of the stuff you want to refer back. So we're going to this time change that as percent and fraction. We're going to change 1.55 to a percent and a fraction. Okay, changing it to a percent is not too bad. How many places did we move the decimal, guys?
2.
To the
Right.
so it's 155%. And if I have 155% and I want to change that to a fraction, what do I put 155 over? 100. We reduce it, and we can reduce it by 5. And raise your hand if you can tell me what the end result would be. Gabby? Mm-hmm. Any questions? None. Could you also, since it's 155 over 100, could you also do 1 and 55 over 100? that would be what? 1 and 11 over 20. And isn't that the same?
Yeah.
Because if I did 20 into 31, I would get 1 and 11 over 20. So either one. Any questions? Y'all ready for the percent equation? Cecilia, do you have this? Has everyone got this? Okay. Now for the whole reason this section was named percent equation. Okay, the percent equation is percent times whole equals part. The percent equation is percent times whole equals part. And yes, you have to have that memorized. Percent times whole equals part. In word problems, you're going to have to be able to identify what the percent is, which isn't too bad because it's got a big old percent sign next to it. So you kind of know that. But the problem is identifying the whole and the part. What is the whole and what is the part? Okay? That can be very confusing in word problems. Okay? Very confusing. So we are going to have to practice identifying those. However, and you will probably see this on the PSAT, there's a trick, and I taught y'all this last year, that if it's not a big old word problem, there's a trick to remembering how to figure this out. You need to know your vocabulary. If it says what percent of 85 is 17? So write that down. What percent of 85 is 17? Y'all have this down? What is of?
Equals. Oh.
Multiplication. 85. What is?
Equals.
And then 17. They're asking what percent? So what can we call that? What?
P.
I would most definitely call it P. And I'll tell you why in a minute. It says what percent of 85 is 17? Now, isn't that what this is? Percent times whole equals part. But if you just remembered what I taught y'all about of and is, you can just solve it this way. So what is P times 85?
85P.
Whoops. 85P equals 17. Does everyone see what I'm doing? Now what do I do, Cecilia? Divide 85 on both sides. And I get P equals, not P whatever,
P minus.
0.2. So 17 divided by 85 is 0.2. But they asked for percent. So what do I now have to do with my answer, Emily? Yep, we're changing it to percent. We move it 2 places to the right, and my percent is 20%. Good job. Now, listen to me carefully. Very common mistake. My students will tell me 0.2 is the answer. They stop right there. This is why, number one, I suggest to my students highlight percent. That should be a clue. The other thing I suggest, call it P instead of N or anything else, because P can maybe help to remind you, you now have to change it to percent. If you just give me this, unfortunately, that is wrong, because they're asking what's the percent of 85. For the percent of 85 is 17. They're asking what the percent is. You have to remember to change it to a percent. That is a common mistake. Any questions? All right, let's do another. Either it's Monday and y'all are not even paying attention, or y'all really get this because of last year. Either way, we are doing great. What is 45% of 236? Okay. Now, you have 2 choices here. This is not a full-blown word problem. So, you can either memorize percent times whole equals part and rearrange these according to that equation. But you have to know, is 236 a whole or is it the part? You have to know that. Or, what is?
Equals.
What is of? Bring down this. What do we do to percent when they're in the problem? Aiden? And how do I do that? So I have 0.45. Always change the percent to a decimal. So we've gotten all this down. We don't know this, so what can we call it?
X.
We can call it X or N or anything else. Okay, so what is 45% of 236? Well, guys, if you know that is equals, you change the percent to a decimal, of is multiplication, and then bring that down. We can now solve it. If you can't remember percent times whole equals part, and you're like, man, I don't know if that's whole or part. Write it down exactly how it's written, and you're good to go. So 0.45 times 236. If you do the math, you would get X equals 106.2. There you go. So that's all you have to do. Just plug in the information. So this was your percent. What was 236? Was it whole or part now that you got the answer, Whit?
Whole.
That's right. Because it's bigger than this one. So this was the part. So see, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes kids get confused as to which is whole and which is part. And there are going to be some word problems that you're going to have to know. But in reality, if you just write these out with what you know directly underneath, you'll be fine. Any questions? Let's do another. 78 is 130% of what number? 78 is 130% of what number? So Michaela, what is is? Cecilia, what's of? Then bring down my 78. Emily, what do I need to do to my percent here? And how do I do that? Move it 2 to the left. It doesn't go all the way in front of that 1 because we only move it 2 places. So then I have, whoops, that's the wrong color. 1.3. And then of what number? What do we call this? What?
X.
Okay, you must call it X. So I have 78 equals 1.3 times X. Does everyone see what I'm doing here? So Michael, what is 1.3 times X?
1.3x.
And how would I solve this, Michael?
You would divide 78 by 1.3.
Yep. Let's cross out. And to save on time, your answer is 60 equals X. So no matter how it's written or what your percent is, you're having trouble remembering which is whole, which is part, and the formula. It's a lot easier if you just write underneath how it's written. Yes.
Are we allowed to use calculators for the division?
Yeah, I'll let y'all do that.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? All right, open your books.
There was a spider in my book. And I punched it.
Page 114. All right. 114. All right, number 1. It says, for each percent, fraction, or decimal, state the equivalent expressions in the other 2 forms. So how many answers should you have? 2. So number 1 is 69%. They want us to show the decimal and the fraction. Okay, let's see. I'll pick Gabby. And you can do either one first. Okay, so fraction, you just put it over 100. And I will, to save on time, I will tell you she doesn't need to reduce anything because it's already reduced.
If we don't reduce, is it wrong?
Yep. Okay, now the decimal. So you would get, there you go. Any questions? All right, 3. 75%. Michael, what is the either fraction or decimal? Doesn't matter which you do first.
Decimal.
Okay, what is it?
The decimal to face to the left.
Okay,
We get 0.75.
very good. Now fraction.
You put it over 100.
And can we reduce?
Or reduce, yes. 3 over 5.
Ah, very good. 3 over, what? Wait,
4.
3 over 4. Okay. Because we can do by 25. So we would get 3 over 4. Very good. Let's look at 7. Are there any questions so far? All right, 7. 3.5. Emily, you can do percent first or fraction first. Which would be easier?
I don't know, percent.
Okay, how do I change that to a percent?
That's what.
Very good, 2 places to the right. And then stick in a 0, so you would get what? Very good. And then, just by that, how would I change it to a fraction? Okay. And then reduce it. And look, I have a 0 and a 0, so I can cross those out. Now I have 35 over 10. Can you reduce that further? Yeah. Good. Good job. Any questions so far? All right, 9. 15 over 2. So our others are going to be percent and decimal. Michaela. You can do in 2 ways. You can either divide 15 by 2 or see if the denominator goes into 100 evenly. Very good. So she divided and she got 7.5. Now it'd be easy to change that to percent.
Oh, do I do it?
Mm-hmm. How do you change it to a percent?
2 places to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And you get 714%.
Perfect. 750%.
That's a lot of percentage.
Any questions so far? All right. 11. Write the appropriate percent equations and solve round decimals to the nearest hundredth and percents to the nearest whole number. 11 says find 84% of 150. Cecilia, tell me how to do it. Tell me how to do it first.
84% over.
What is of? Multiply. Bring down my 150. What do we do to the percent? Huh?
Get into a decimal.
Yep, how do I do that?
2 times 2
So I get 0.84. And all it said is find 84% of 150. So now all I do is multiply. 0.84 times 150. So to save on time, I'll just tell you, it's 126. Kids freak out over these all the time. Just write what you know, change percent to decimal, of is multiplication, multiply, you're good to go. Not too bad, right? Well, let's see. Any questions about that? All right, 13. 58% of what number is 48? Whit, you want to do this?
Sure.
What do I do to the percent?
You're gonna Change it to a decimal.
Okay, and I do that by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. What do I get?
0.58
Very good. Of is
times
good. Is,
equals
and then what can we call what number?
x.
There you go. So 0.58 times x is
0.58x.
equals 48. So first, write it exactly how it's written underneath. Then you can start working it out. 0.58 times x equals 48. Now we divide on both sides. Because we're multiplying, and for the sake of time, because I want to get y'all started. Not that I know y'all can't. Oh, this is a good one. It's 82.758. But what did they tell you to do? Round.
The decimals
To the nearest hundred.
to the nearest hundred and percents.
Okay, so we're rounding. That's 5 or greater, so 5 turns to,
6.
there you go. Any questions? Does everyone have this down? I got one more for you. Cecilia, do you have this? 15, and then I'll set you free. Find 50% of 3/4. Aiden.
You would 50 down from 0.5 here to 0.5
Okay, so 0.5 of is,
times.
and then 3/4, right? Okay.
And would you turn it into return to a decimal?
Okay, it's up to you. You could turn this into a fraction. This would have been 50 over 100, which then turns to a half, right? So you could have done 1/2 times 3/4. Or you can change this to a decimal. So which do you rather do?
I'll change the fraction.
You want to change it to a fraction? Okay, so he's going to change it to a fraction. So really, it's going to be 1/2 because 0.5 is a half times 3/4. All right, so we have to have common denominators, right? Right?
Oh no, you don't.
I gotcha. Only when you're adding and subtracting. So in this case, all you're doing is multiplying across, and you get what? And that is absolutely okay. If you change it to a decimal, you get a decimal answer. It's okay. Not the end of the world. Any questions? All right, I'm setting you free. You're doing page 114 and 116. I'm going to be nice since it's Monday. Everyone is going to do 2 through 20 even. And 44. Oh yeah, 46 looks great. 48. And 50. That's due Tuesday. What? Test Monday. All right.